Welcome back. It's another episode of the Better Learning Podcast. I'm excited about bringing Claire Coder into the conversation today. I've known Claire for a long time, but I felt like our audience here on the Better Learning Podcast has to know Claire and what she is doing with AntFlow. So I'm just going to play in. Claire, good to see you again.
Great to see you, Kevin. We've known each other for over 8 years, building companies.
Isn't that crazy?
Crazy.
I mean, to really think about how we met, we probably met back, 2016, 2017 range, when you were a freshman at Ohio State University, and you had the amazing idea of starting AntFlow, OntFlow. I know we've even had the discussion. How do you say it?
I say OntFlow, and you're right. Back in 2016 was the year that I actually ended up leaving the Ohio State University to start building what is now known as OntFlow.
So why don't you give the founding story? Because I think that story is the best place to start, right?
It's the start of it all. So Kevin, back in 2016, I was studying at the Ohio State University, and I was at an event, and like 86% of women, I started my period unexpectedly in public. I went to the bathroom, and I didn't have my own tampon or pad with me, but there was a quarter-operated tampon and pad dispenser. Naturally, I didn't have a quarter because who carries coins? And in this moment of despair, I'm thinking, wow, if toilet paper and paper towels are offered at no cost to employees, students, and guests, why aren't period products? That led me to the weekend afterwards, leave university to start building a company to ensure no one ever has to worry about getting their period in public. And what we do at AntFlow, the solution to this issue that I was facing and that 86% of women have faced, we created a free vend tampon and pad dispenser. So removing those quarter-operated dispensers that are in bathrooms everywhere and replacing it with a free vend dispenser. If you're a student, you just press a button, you get a period product just the way it should be, so no one has to worry about getting their period in public.
So our audience should know exactly why I brought you in now, because the discussion of bathrooms in schools has been a huge topic, and just looking at it from the education leader side of it, and then also the architects, is everyone knows all the issues that happen in school, they're almost always happening in the bathroom. And to hear what you're doing and as part of the solution is really important for people to know about. But what I think is really awesome to see is, one, I love watching your skills as a businesswoman. Like, it is like you are one of those people. I remember somebody asked me asking me they thought, are you good at identifying talent? And I'm like, well, it was really easy to find Claire, to see like she is an all-star and she's going to do that. So I'm like, maybe I am okay at identifying talent. Because it was immediate. It was so easy to see that you were going to do amazing things. It was just a matter of like what amazing things you're going to do. What you've done with your company, but more importantly, as the face of the movement, can you talk through what's happening in all these states and how this is really beyond just your business?
Certainly. And Kevin, you're right. Especially for educators, there is a lot of conversation around the bathroom, as it should be. In the US, 1 in 4 students, menstruating students, cannot afford tampons and pads. Period products are not covered by WIC or SNAP. So if you're living at or below the poverty line, periods are just another thing that is restricting you from performing in school. And we know that students miss class, leave school if they don't feel comfortable and confident that they have the products that they need where they need them. Not at the nurse's office. You go to the nurse when you're sick. In the bathroom, because that is where you are experiencing your period. And as it pertains to this information, because we have shown that by offering free period products in bathrooms, it increases attendance amongst girls in school, over 20 states have passed legislation requiring schools to offer period products in bathrooms. AntFlow is headquartered in the state of Ohio, where $5 million was allocated to schools, K through 12 schools grades 6 and up, to ensure that their bathrooms are stocked with period products. Other states like Utah passed with bipartisan unanimous support to ensure schools grades K through 12 offered free period products in girls' bathrooms. So this is a bipartisan effort to ensure that our next generation of menstruators have the product that they need where they need it.
So what we see a lot right now is we're seeing the whole idea of having more of like individual bathrooms, and then more of like the hand washing stations are everywhere, or outside, because we're trying to prevent kind of the congregation of people within bathrooms. With that, why not have those available so you have the privacy and the access when needed? So to hear that the states are doing that, this is something to me, like just the takeaway of this, and we can just have some more fun conversation about this. I just want to make sure that everyone who's designing schools knows that there are probably a state requirement. If it hasn't happened yet, it's coming very soon. So we need to be planning to make sure that when we're doing these, that we are putting the access in there that's needed.
Certainly. And Kevin, you're right. Especially when you're designing a new school, dispensers, as we all know, are very expensive. You could be paying $600 to $800 for a quarter operated dispenser, oftentimes that are not ADA compliant, because if it requires a quarter in turning a knob, it requires wrist mobility, which is not within the ADA guidelines. So you're spending $600 to $800 for a machine that is likely already obsolete within the state, or going to become obsolete based on the legislative tailwinds. And so as a company, AntFlow, we work with architects, administrators, superintendents to either retrofit their existing bathrooms to become compliant with legislation. We also have a variety of schools across Oklahoma where there's no legislation, but because the data is clear, they are implementing accessible period care so that they are increasing attendance amongst girls. So we work with schools day in and day out to make sure that they're not wasting money on yet another machine that's going to be obsolete, and making sure that they are in compliance with the law. That is what we do at AntFlow, and we do it with so much period positivity, Kevin.
So talk about what are the roadblocks that you're having right now? Are there still people that are fighting it, or are there still people that just are unaware, or what's the reason why, if you go into a bathroom right now, whether it's in a school or even like public areas, because I love watching what you're doing on social media, where you go to airports and sporting events and do that. It gets me looking at that too, of like, yeah, why why is this not here? Where's pushback, or is it just literally just that they're just not aware, it just doesn't hit their radar?
Yeah. So as a company, AntFlow stocks over 42,000 bathrooms in the US, Canada, and the UK with our dispensers and organic cotton period products. Schools specifically, we are actually in over 750 schools, and 1.6 million girls rely on AntFlow period products in their school bathrooms. So we have definitely have a groundswell of support. And candidly, when schools have not yet adopted, one, they aren't aware. It has not been on radar. Oftentimes, folks that are making these decisions aren't menstruating. And so, Kevin, I'm so glad to be here talking with you about accessible period care, because everybody needs to be a part of this conversation to make real change. This is not just a women's issue. This isn't everyone's issue, because when one part of the population is served, the entire population rises. So that's one of the areas, is access and awareness. Are you paying attention to the conversation? And then the other component, which I'm sure the educators listening and architects listening are so familiar, budget. How am I going to pay for yet another thing that I'm going to offer for free to my students and teachers? How are we going to do it? And as mentioned, there are some states that have allocated funding. New Mexico, Ohio, Missouri, Flow has a variety of resources on our website with legislation as well as the allocated funding to help guide you through those processes so that you can figure out how to get the funding that's available to you. Some schools are using CARES Act money that has been, if it's still available to those schools, because accessible period care does increase attendance amongst girls. And then we've also seen schools lean on a variety of different funding buckets. But traditionally, tampons and pads ultimately become a part of the janitorial budget, just like paper towels, soap, and toilet paper. But we get it. Those are the two areas. Awareness, which we're checking that box off today. And then the next one is funding. And we can certainly support and guide that. But we know that's a conversation for each district.
Yeah, we'll make sure we put that in the show notes, those links of those resources that you mentioned in there. But you're right. A lot of the times the bathroom or the management of the bathroom facilities comes under facilities department. And if we know it is highly favored towards male versus female in that role. So I think the experience there, would you mind telling some stories of like what the actual impact is to that, that seventh grade girl that as a boy, as male, like just we don't have that experience of what happens and how that impacts the rest of the day, the rest of their life, their interactions that they could have with their peers and their teachers.
Yeah. Well, when a school chooses to not implement freely accessible period care in the bathrooms, it doesn't just impact the menstruators, it also impacts the teachers. What we found is that teachers are often bearing the cost, and students figure out which teachers have a little drawer for tampons and pads, and then they feel comfortable going to them. So the cost is falling somewhere on your staff, on your teachers, on your nurse's office. The cost is somewhere, but it really should be centralized within facilities in the bathroom. So that's one component of what we see. But then from an impact perspective, what is so powerful is as a company, over 5,000 student advocates have supported to bring AntFlow period products to their schools. It is students that drive this change. And you don't have to be a girl to advocate for AntFlow. At AntFlow, we call our guys that support AntFlow Flow Bros. We have many of Flow Bros. You can learn more about those on our website. But these are folks that support access to period care. And together, these students across the whole spectrum, as well as their faculty and administration, all work together to link arms to make change within their schools. There are hundreds of stories of students bringing AntFlow to their schools and then ultimately adopting a bathroom. One of the most special programs that we've seen in Utah is that students have actually quote, adopted a bathroom, similar to the concept of adopting a highway, where they become responsible for the cleanliness and the protocols and ensuring that people are taking care of this space. And it really offers the authority and autonomy to this next generation, which they are craving so much. So it gives them some leadership opportunities and also ensures that the products are being taken care of and certainly not abused.
All right, I'm going to ask you some more stuff because to me, this is just like such a no-brainer. Like just if you don't have this in your school, for those school leaders, if you don't have them throughout your district, and if we're designing schools, absolutely, like do not miss the opportunity to do this because the impact that it has on the students' lives, and that's what we're talking about so much. We're looking at the whole child. We're talking about being radically student-centered. It's not just about education. This is real life and the experiences that kids are going through, and why are we making those things harder for them? This is such an easy one that we can help support because it's just a natural thing in life.
Yes. And it's low cost and high impact. School lunch programs are hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars for districts. Implementing accessible period care is $3 to $5 per female student per year. $3 to $5 per female student per year. There's an upfront cost to purchase the dispensers one time, but once again, there's a decent amount of funding resources for those capital expenses. And this is so powerful because you're seeing immediate and direct results for for increased attendance.
Yeah, I mean, you just think the student doesn't have to go to the nurse's office, go home to go change clothes or anything like that, or feel embarrassed. It's just such a no-brainer. So, all right, now I just want to talk to you about business. How is it now, like running a company? What are the things that you've had, you've had to learn, kind of going through this experience? I just want to hear like your journey of what it's been like.
Kevin, it has been a wild, beautiful adventure. When I started this company 8 years ago, I didn't really know what I was getting into. And honestly, thank God, because it is a lot harder than I could have ever imagined. But I am so proud of what we have built as a company. When I started 8 years ago, there was no legislation around accessible period care in schools and in buildings. And now, as mentioned, there are over 20 states that have legislation. There's also right now a bill that would called the Menstrual Equity for All Act that would be the first piece of federal legislation in the United States that would require all buildings outside the home to offer free period products. It would become part of a traditional building code. This is now coming in front of Congress to be voted on, and it is yet another piece of legislation that could be really instrumental for people with periods. And this would emulate what has already passed in Canada. As of December 16th, 2023, Canada now requires all federally regulated employers to offer free period products in bathrooms. And our company is proud to now stock banks including Scotiabank, Royal Bank of Canada, a variety of other federally regulated employers are all implementing Ant Flow period products. So folks should do this now if it is not required, because you can get the goodwill, or you can wait a few months and then it will ultimately become required, because the time is now. And as I look back, it really is baffling to me that we didn't think about this before. For some reason, women just hid tampons up their sleeves and walked to the bathroom, and that was normal. But it doesn't have to be the way it has always been. And what was really eye-opening to me when I was first working on this, I started it when I was 18. When I was first working on this, it was mind-blowing to me that no one else was doing this. So I guess I had to. And that's really what fueled me, especially at the beginning, and what continues to excite me today, is that we are making real change, and making change thanks to mentorship like you, Kevin. You've really supported Ant Flow from the very beginning.
What you've done, though, is what I think is the trend that we're seeing in entrepreneurship of we like you and I, like I always say, like we're a mission-based company. At the end of the day, like I don't have a passion to like about like a chair, a certain chair that goes at school, but I have a passion to what that does, the impact that does, and the learning environment that creates. And I say like I'm selfish about it. I want to work for a company that is doing something that is for the greater good, that's making an impact out there. And to see you and what you're doing, it not only has an impact on the work you're doing, but it influences kind of that next round of entrepreneurs that have more of that mission base that is really looking to like, how do we change the world for good, and using the tool of entrepreneurship to do that. And so I'd love to hear like the circles that kind of you run into, the influences, other companies that you see that are doing those. Would you mind sharing like your experience of doing that?
Yes. And Kevin, my hope is that every time someone uses an Ant Flow dispenser, they do realize that they too can create a company like Ant Flow. Growing up in Toledo, Ohio, I didn't really know that becoming a founder, or quote entrepreneurship, was a career path. The only thing that I knew was you have to go to college to be successful. And I think that there are so many different routes to success nowadays, and there are a lot of different career opportunities that weren't always talked about. And so my hope is that every time a young menstruator presses the button to get an Ant Flow period product, they too are inspired to build a better world for their next generation. And then in terms of other products and businesses that I've become really excited about, particularly in the bathroom, is Pluie, which is a baby changing table. The founders are two moms, and they were like, why are these baby changing tables not self-sanitizing? This is nasty. They too build a
They
product
are
to make
nasty.
the world better for their babies, which is amazing. And then another company in the bathroom that I really appreciate is Gojo, the inventors of Purell, also headquartered in Ohio, and another certified woman-owned company. There are so many brands that continue to innovate, and I'm really proud to be building better bathrooms alongside both of those brands.
Yeah, hearing you talk sparks something else that we talk about a lot of just the whole student experience. Like when we're looking at K-12, that for a long time, and I feel like there's some shifts in there, but the whole purpose of going through school was to get into college. However, there's a big subset where it's just not serving people. Like the fact that you felt like to do what you knew to do, you had to actually leave college in there. I'd to hear kind of like what was your experience in school, and at what point, like what were your goals when you were going through going through school and into high school? Because typically it's college. Like that's it. Like that's where I'm going after here. If I want to have any success, I got to go to college, and that's what I'm preparing for. What was it like for you going through school?
Certainly. And in the spirit of college application season, for our parents that are listening as well, change the question from where are you going to college to what are your plans for after high school? Just that small change can really inspire our next generation to thoughtfully consider what they want to do and how they are going to make an impact in this world. For me, I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, and I did struggle in school, but you wouldn't have known it because I had a button company. I made buttons and magnets and compact mirrors. I've always really enjoyed creating products and learning what people enjoy and selling them stuff. And that business afforded me some money to pay my friends to do homework for me. I am dyslexic, and it was really hard for me to consistently perform the way that traditional education required me to. And candidly, I wasn't aware of my dyslexia or having a word for it until after I graduated high school. So with that, traditional education was really not complementary for what I felt that I was good at, which for me was business. And I was lucky to find that I really enjoyed business early because I did have this button company, and I knew I wanted to build businesses after high school. But unfortunately, I didn't know how to do that without college. It was told that you had to go to college to be successful. And I wanted to be successful. I really did. So that's why I originally went to college. But for me, that traditional learning format of sitting in a class and paying attention and then regurgitating information was not something that worked for my learning style. And so that is why I did make the decision to cut college short after one semester and start building at Flow.
Do you regret it?
Regret it. Do I regret it?
Yeah. Do you wish you stayed in school?
The first few years were really hard. My parents were not supportive of the decision. I'm an only child, and they really believed that college was the only path. So I didn't talk to them for a period of time, and we essentially separated our relationship for a bit. It was really hard. During those times, though, I didn't have a plan B. In college, or when I was leaving university, my guidance counselor recommended, Claire, perhaps you just take a leave of absence so that you could come back if this whole business thing didn't work. But for me, there was already such a small chance that the business would work that I had to put all my eggs in that basket. and not put any energy towards a plan B, or plan A certainly would never work out. So during those first few years, it was really hard. There were moments where I was on the floor sobbing, trying to figure this out. How was I going to get inventory? How was I going to afford payroll? How was I going to afford even filing for a patent, which are very, very expensive? I'm so insanely grateful that I continued forward, because what we have built is something that I'm insanely proud of and grateful for every single day. Do I regret leaving college now? No. Perhaps one day I'll get an honorary. We do stock a variety of universities as well, so perhaps one day maybe they'll help me out with that. But do I regret leaving college? No.
Were there any teachers, like I'm just thinking of high school when you had your button company, were there teachers that recognized what you were doing? Or was that always like you had your schoolwork and then you had your business stuff on the side?
I was really lucky to have a guidance counselor that saw my button business and recognized it as a business, not just a Claire hobby project, and treated it as such. Candidly, it probably was like a Claire hobby project, but she treated me like a business owner. And that was something that meant so much to me, because I then was able to build into that persona that she believed in. So that was really, really special. And she also encouraged me to find more opportunities outside of the classroom, networking events for local business owners. And I joined a young business owner network when I was 16 and in high school. And that was really, really powerful. But not all of the teachers see that, but once again, not you don't need 30 of them. I'm grateful that I had one.
Yeah. Yep. That's a lot of times all you need. I mean, we talk about that a lot, how every kid has to know there's at least one adult in there that sees them and cares about them. And that's, as long as there's one, that's usually enough. Obviously, it's better when there's more. So you have a really kind of classic story of how people had to leave and kind of learn by fire of trying to figure out how to run a business, a payroll, and all those things. I'll say I'm one of them too. Like, I went through formal education. Got my master's in business, but the reality is, like, I didn't learn anything until I actually had to go through it myself. Do you think like entrepreneurship is one of those things that is hard to teach until somebody like does it? Or what was your learning like? Do you think you could have learned it a different way? Do you think it just had to be, I had to do it to learn?
Look, education is expensive. You can either go and spend $100,000 at a university and perhaps learn that way, or you can make a whole bunch of mistakes that are also going to cost you a minimum of $100,000. One way or another, you're going to be spending six figures. And so, yes, education was expensive for me, and I learned rapidly based on mistakes. And to some extent, I do think that there are skill sets in entrepreneurship that cannot be taught in a classroom. It is the ability to adjust to the situation. It is the mental mindset of remaining calm when everything around you is on fire. And last but not least, it's the consistency and persistence. I've been doing this for 8 years, and now we feel like the quote overnight success. All of this legislation is passing, and Claire Coder suddenly has a business that's perfectly timed up to be there for it. But I've been doing this for 8 years. So thank goodness I continued, because it is the perseverance and consistency that allowed us to be here by the time that the legislation caught up. And I don't think that those three traits you learn in a classroom, those are things that you learn and continue to learn every single day when you show up to your job as the founder and CEO.
Yeah, and that's such a strong message that I feel like everyone needs to hear. That whole idea that you show me an overnight success and I'll show you 10 years of hard work to get there is so true. But in the era that we're in right now, there's so few people that are willing to stick with something for that long. But to me, that is almost like the number one success indicator is, will somebody stick with it long enough to make the mistakes and figure it out? And kudos to you for doing that, but it's also such a strong message that too many times people get into this or whatever it is, and it's not just entrepreneurship, anything that, they're not good at it the first time they do it, but oh, I'm not good at that, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. The consistency. My dad's message to me was perseverance pays. And that is one of my life mottos, perseverance pays. Just takes a really long time to pay.
How are things with your parents now? As we're wrapping up, I feel like this is a good way. Like,
oh, the heartwarming story.
Yeah. Are they coming along? Do they see your vision now?
Certainly. I'm really grateful. My parents are now supportive of the company. My dad has an Aunt Flo Bro sticker on the back of his motorcycle. My mom is very supportive and really, really grateful. And I'm really grateful that I now have a team. We have an organization across the United States, all dedicated to making sure people have access to these basic necessities. And I wouldn't be able to do it without them as well.
All right, and then I do have one more question, because getting to see you do what you've done is just really rewarding and very cool. It's like, these are the inspirational stories that I feel like one older, like people my age, like older people need to see, like, hey, look what's going on in here. That I'm going to wait on that. Your generator just went off again. So, all right, I'll set that one up again. So the last question that I think is really important for people to just hear about is, and now I'm drawing a blank of what it was. I had a really good one that I wanted to wrap up on, but maybe it just wasn't meant to be,
You got this. You got this. You were talking about old people. You were like older.
Yeah, like, yeah, it will come to me when we keep talking, but I'm going to do an outro. And when I think of it, we'll come back and edit it back in there. Claire, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. It's a story that I feel like people need to hear. I love that on this Riverside where we started doing, if I catch the thumbs up, it will give a little thumbs up on there so that people are watching the video of it. But just a reminder to their listeners, go through their show notes, go like really take this information and put it into action. This is such a simple one. A lot of times we have some more philosophical discussions. This is like an action one. Like, take the action right now. And then just know that subscribe to Better Learning Podcast wherever you're listening. BetterLearningPodcast.com is our hub for everything in here. At Claire, just really appreciate you joining and the work you're doing, the inspiration you're doing, because it's hitting every generation. Every generation is getting impact by the work you're doing. So keep it up. I can't wait to see where you go next.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Keep it flowing.
All right. As I wrapped up, I remember my last question. You're a visionary person. There's no way you're not thinking about what's next. I want to hear what's next for you. Where do you go? Do you map it out? Do you do like a 10-year vision, 5-year, or what are those things that you're looking at? Like, man, you're going to look back and be like, what I'm doing is just getting started.
What's next? So at Aunt Flo, we're proud to stock over 42,000 bathrooms. And in the United States, there are 10 million female commercial bathrooms. So we have a long way to go. And my job is not done until all of those bathrooms are stocked with accessible, quality Aunt Flo period products. That's what's next, Kevin.
Perfect. All right. I'm going to edit that back in.
Yay!
All right. Yeah. What else? Anything I missed? Anything else you want to talk about?
That was great. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. And you're right. It's very actionable. This is not a philosophical conversation. This is like, please just go put period products in your bathrooms now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Seriously, let me know if there's anything we can do to help. Yeah, we got some other, I have a few other initiatives, things that I'm like going to pull you in when we're ready for it. But yeah, it's
Would love that.
You're just connecting with you.
And then from a school's perspective too, certainly interested in tag teaming in any way that we can. We're excited to put this in our newsletter. You have a newsletter as well. schools is a really big market for us.
Yeah.
So happy to support you too.
Yeah, there may be some joint things, or there may be things that there's you guys should. I can just pull you in. You guys should just be presenting. I don't know how many of these educational conferences that you go to. There's like they're never ending. Like literally, they're never ending. You can go to any convention center any day of the week. There's some educational conference going on.
Yes.
But there's a few that it may be worth of just like submitting for a workshop, or where I can make an intro and just be like, hey, you need to have Claire come in.
Yeah.
And
That'd be awesome. We do you go to IEI? We go to that one.
I don't know.
Once again, there's like 900 of these
Yeah.
things. So yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
I'd be delighted to chat more about that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I think there'll be more of these things that we just need to get in. I know you're building your team, so it doesn't always have to be you. We can get some other people in there telling the stories too. So, all right. If you're in Arizona, let me know. All right. Sounds good. Talk to you later. See ya. Bye. The views and opinions expressed in the Better Learning Podcast are those of myself as an individual and of my guest, and do not necessarily represent the organizations we work for, the Association for Learning Environments, K-12, Education Leaders Organization, or Second Class Foundation.